With an outpouring of support, Mica's family began their quest for justice. Disappointed with law enforcement, they eventually turned to the media. Meanwhile, sworn statements from JP's ex-wife and Mica's siblings shone an even brighter light on the pastor's alleged dark side. A frustrated JP took to social media in his own defense, but his videos seemed to cause more questions than answers. With the investigation still ongoing, will Mica ever truly get justice? This week's episode is Mica Miller, The Case So Far, Part 3. Sinisterhood. Content warning. This episode contains discussions of domestic violence, coercive control, sexual assault, child sexual abuse, and brief mention of harm to an animal.
Well, this idiot's ruined Spider-Man for me.
Yeah, man, get it. No, and Back to the Future. Those aren't yours. We're taking those back, all of us collectively.
You don't
get those.
You don't get to tell me about sad, okay? You don't get to take two things that I really liked and I don't know, sometimes weave them into this weird, it's honestly, I think while Mica might have also been struggling with mental illness, I 100% believe he is as well. And I think he's starting to spiral, and we might even be seeing like a manic episode, which would explain the bizarre walking around town in a full-ass Spider-Man costume, like you're in Times Square waiting for someone to come take a pic with you, and driving around in his DeLorean, which maybe he's a collector of that type of stuff. But read the room, buddy. I don't think this is the time to be doing that.
And to clarify, this is after your wife has been found.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
But that's why I'm like, well, if you want to walk around town and not be harassed, I'll dress up like Spider-Man. I'll cover my face. But I just think you DoorDash, whatever it is you needed to do. But if you're not in your right state of mind, then I suppose maybe easier said than done.
Or it's a jab at your ex-sister-in-law who owns the children's dress-up party company and that you and your sister worked for at times. That Mica dressed up like Wonder Woman based on pictures. I believe JP dressed up as Spider-Man based on pictures. So one of the Francis sisters had kind of like, and I had a couple of friends ran a place like that here in Dallas. They dressed up as like Disney princesses, Batman, Spider-Man. It was connected to all of our Magic Time Machine people because we already had costumes. But there was a photo of them all together where Mica's as Wonder Woman, and it appears that one of her sisters ran a company like this. So I wonder if it's like, recognize this costume. I still have it. Now I'm wearing it around.
Yeah. Or like, this makes me feel even closer to Mica because she was Wonder Woman and I was Spider-Man. So I'm wearing her diamond necklace under this too.
Yeah. AKA
that's
your
my
trophy.
JP impression.
Yeah. No, it is. This guy, it's hard. I never want to say I'm done with this case because we won't be. I think even though this is part 3 of our series and our coverage now, like with Ellen Greenberg, who actually it was just her birthday recently. So if anyone's listening, make sure you go head over to the Justice for Ellen Greenberg Facebook page and make sure you sign that change.org petition to help her family. But with cases like that, or Peggy Clinky, like they stay in our heart, they stay on our mind. And especially when it's like Peggy, like Mica, where we see this is a long-standing societal issue that we all, and these are just exemplary cases of it, of the worst possible outcome of it. I think that she'll stay on our hearts. But I will say, for my own mental health, I don't have to look at his dumb face or hear his stupid voice.
No.
For work purposes, at least not, as we change subjects and move on. But we will stay tuned into the case, but sure. I don't have to hear JP Miller talk, which is great for me.
Yeah. But he did do a lot of talking, and we'll talk about that in today's episode. Sometimes you just can't keep your mouth shut, and when social media is so big, it doesn't take long for everyone to see the stuff you say.
And I'll give you all later in the show my legal opinion on how that's going to work out for him.
Well, I'm Christy.
I'm Heather.
And let's get into it. Given JP's bizarre sermon and the suspicious circumstances surrounding Mica's death, the public became interested almost immediately. From TikTok and YouTube to mainstream outlets like Law and Crime and News Nation, the story went viral. On May 7th, the Robeson County Sheriff's Department shared more details and a timeline of the death investigation. In a Facebook post, they addressed spreading rumors and stressed the importance of making decisions based on gathered evidence.
A brief thing that I just learned, Michael Francis, Micah's father, had shared a Facebook post from a gentleman who was the videographer for Solid Rock, and based on his post, he indicated that he thought it was weird when he filmed it, and that he received a text from JP telling him, "Hey, don't upload that," and then he went ahead and uploaded it anyway.
What was it?
The video, the sermon.
Oh, that sermon. I thought
The
you just
announcement.
meant. I thought you meant another incident that he
No,
videoed.
that sermon.
Well, yeah.
Well, and he said,
Good
I got
for
this
him.
text, saying sit on it. And I had seen things, and he kind of made allusions. He's like, I'd seen things on camera and off camera that made me feel like people just needed to see this. And then he posted it. And then a few weeks later, he's like, well, I got a cease and desist letter. Well, guess what? I'm not going to cease and desist because I'm going to tell the truth. And I'm like, oh, the lawyers are going to start working overtime. So I think this Robinson
Good for him, though.
Oh, I think so. And the sheriff's department coming out and saying, like, we're going to post our own version. What we're about to lay out for you all. I believe they edited their Facebook post 9 times.
The post confirmed the whereabouts of JP and his alleged romantic partner, Susie Skinner. Both were not in North Carolina on the night before and the day of Mica's death. JP claimed he was in Charleston, South Carolina, with Susie for an athletic event. The department released a photo of his vehicle on Highway 17 bypass in Horry County, South Carolina at 2:22 p.m. on the day of Mica's death. However, the truck's tinted windows prevented anyone inside the vehicle from being seen. The post also noted that JP
was accompanied
on the trip. The police accepted JP and his romantic partner's word, along with the single photo of JP's truck, as proof he was not near Mica. However, no images of JP at the athletic event have been released, and the police haven't mentioned any such evidence. Mica's family has publicly requested further evidence of his alibi, but none has surfaced so far. Which, you're telling me there's not one picture of this guy at a sporting event?
Yeah, or pictures he took. And maybe there
or
are
in the background of somebody's camp, maybe people haven't gone through it. Or maybe he wasn't there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, didn't that person get? He was at a Mets game and he got filmed, and he'd been accused of murder, and they said, "Go back and look at the footage. I was at the game." And
from Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yes,
there's a whole documentary about it. It's crazy. It's a good documentary.
But it's like you think, okay. That's it. It's a picture of his car driving down the highway, and it does have tinted windows. It is his truck from what he said, from what everybody said. I will be interested as this investigation proceeds what digital forensic evidence says he was at, where it says he was at. And also not just, we need to track JP's phone. What I think law enforcement should do is pull any cell phone pings that are moving in tandem with his phone. And then if there was say for instance, if I had a burner phone in my real cell phone, you would say, oh, Heather's phone is going from here to the grocery store and back home. Well, then if my phone stays at home and then I take my burner phone to go do something else, but if I had it with me in my car this whole time, you could track it went with me to the grocery store and back, and then the burner phone separate. So I would say any cell phone pings that are in or around his kind of stuff should be pulled.
Sheriff's deputies met with the Francis family on May 7th. According to interviews with her father, Michael, and sisters Sierra and Anna, the sheriff's department spent less than a half hour with the family and rushed the meeting. For instance, Anna described being shown footage of Mica at the gas station as the deputy asked to fast forward the footage since it was over 20 minutes long. That is a kick in the stomach.
Yeah, she said it's just like, she's here for a while. Can we just get through this? And they were like, no, it's the last minutes of our family member's life.
Yeah.
We'd like to see them.
And you should want to see them too for possible clues. I mean, anything. I mean, 1 minute you pass, as we have seen in the Karen Reed trial, which is they're deliberating as we record this. 2 minutes of deleted footage or unseen footage could make a world of difference. So watch the entire thing. I don't care if she's just standing there staring for 20 minutes. You watch the whole thing.
No, I agree. And I think much like the Karen Reed case, you see where investigators have a conclusion and then they just take all the evidence and they try to jam the square pegs in the round hole and go, well, our conclusion is this. So look at our conclusatory slideshow. And it's like, that's not at all a conclusory slideshow. That's not at all how investigation works. You gather all the facts and then from there you go, well, now we're going to find what happened. But it's like second one. They were like, well, we've decided it's this.
Yeah. They decided right off the bat it was suicide, and no other alternative was looked at.
Mm-mm.
The PowerPoint presentation deputies prepared was centered around the theory that Mica's death was undoubtedly a suicide. The family asked for further investigation of other leads and theories, but instead were told it was a suicide and that JP had an alibi. Not finding any relief from law enforcement, the Francis family turned to the media. Journalists uncovered public records of JP's alleged mistreatment of Mica and his long criminal history. 2 weeks after her death, police records were released, revealing that GPS trackers had been reported on Mica's vehicles 4 times in recent months. JP admitted in text and emails that he had engaged PIs to track Mica via GPS. Although JP denied any and all allegations of abuse through his attorney, in messages obtained by News Nation's Rich McHugh, JP admitted to putting GPS trackers on Mica's vehicles and posting a nude photo of Mica on the internet as a form of revenge.
Yeah, all this stuff starts coming out, and JP's response through his attorney is none of that ever happened. It never ever happened. I never put a razor in her tire. I never tracked her. I never did anything. Well, then he starts texting Rich McHugh going, he's texting Rich McHugh going, well, yeah, I did some of that. Yeah, I did get a GPS. Yeah, I did some of that. Separately from that, Rich McHugh obtained through sources, I have to imagine it's her family and or Regina Ward, her attorney, obtained through sources email chains in which JP says, listen, I was just tracking you for your own good. It was just the PI. Or listen, I did the thing with the tire, but I feel really bad about it. And yes, I posted the photo. I feel bad. So to me, he has...
But it was only online for 1 hour, and it was only because you had brought up my past transgressions and I was hurting and I wanted you to hurt. So everything is very, well, yeah, I did it, but it was your fault that I did it.
But to finish what I was saying, no, like them doing that, him saying that, it's in direct opposition to everything he says verbally. He'll come out verbally and say, well, I never ever did that. And it's like, you've texted a reporter, and also we have separate individual evidence. So to me, when JP says, oh, I'll clear my name, I'm like, you have zero credibility because we know you straight up lie about provable facts.
He reversed what you should do, which is you talk about those things. You don't put it in writing, but instead he was putting in writing all the stuff he had done, but then verbally, claiming he didn't do anything. And it's like, buddy, what did you think was going to happen with all these texts? You think screenshots aren't? I mean, you're talking to a journalist. You think something's not going to be done with this?
Yeah, he's definitely going to put it on the news.
Yeah, as he should. I'm sure
is.
He was thrilled when those texts came through. You got a huge case that you just broke open. Mica's sister Sierra shared text and Snapchat screenshots showing JP threatening the Francis family. When Mica stayed with them in November of 2022, JP texted Sierra saying he was on his way and warning,
I'm armed. I'm ready.
He challenged her to
call the cops
when she asked him not to come. The 911 call Sierra made, begging police for help, also became public.
And he was texting me at this point saying, I'll be at your house at 12:55. I'm armed and ready, and I will keep you up all night. I'm going to get her back.
We should also note that JP was a felon convicted of hitting a woman with his vehicle, ran her over, drove her 100 feet. He then had to go in front of the South Carolina Pardon and Parole Board and asked to get his gun rights reinstated in 2022. If I'm not mistaken, that's the year he did that. Said he needed it to protect his family. Gets a gun in his hand, immediately starts committing domestic violence with the very gun that he obtained through fraud, by the way, because he lied under oath to the Pardon and Parole Board. I heard the audio myself. And he goes, it was like a hurricane. There was a bunch of water. I splashed someone with the water with my car. I don't understand why I got charged with like a violent crime. And
he said that was what happened instead of a woman on his hood that he drove
for 100
feet.
Correct. Yeah. He said, oh, no. He didn't even say no. He said, oh, Your Honor, it wasn't even really a violent crime. Like there was this misunderstanding. There was some water that I splashed, and the judge said, oh, well, we're not here to relitigate the case. I just want to know how you've changed. And him and his attorney are like, he's a minister now. He's an angel. I'm like, he molested a bunch of kids in the middle of that, according to his ex-wife, but okay. But to see how vital it is that we keep guns out of the hands of domestic abusers, here is a domestic abuser who lied and fraudulently obtained, in my opinion, to get his gun back and immediately used it for what we think that they're going to use it for, which is not protection.
No, it's when things like that happen, I just look at the justice system and say, like, why do we have laws in place when this is what it doesn't matter. And I've watched so much footage of him talking to people where he's sometimes deliberately trying to win them over. I think because of his narcissistic personality, it's ingrained in him to always like kind of, be on and affable and charming and stuff. But it's so inauthentic. But also, I can see how it would work. I mean, he for a living, basically, I mean, he's a pastor. He does sermons, but he's spewing his own rhetoric up there and convincing people of things that he believes, So when he goes on TikTok or in front of a judge and does all that, like, sometimes it is effective. I mean, obviously it was effective because he had multiple victims over his life that fell into his trap.
No, you're 100% right. And the audio, he's like, Your Honor, I have really changed. And he starts listing off everything the church did, but he's taking credit for, we've got these missions and da-da-da-da. And it's like, yeah, that stuff's all happening despite the fact that you're banging a bunch of parishioners. I don't know. Like, I don't know what a bunch of, more than
14-year-olds.
Yeah, grooming teens.
But also, which came first? Did you create these things because you wanted to be able to, in court, to say, look at all the wonderful things I'm doing? And I think all too often people fall back on religion and doing religious things as proof that, like, I am the most holy person that could never do any wrong, when it's like, it's 2024. Like, are we really going to keep that charade up? Anybody can do anything. And oftentimes that's used as a cover, which I believe he and his father used spiritual abuse and their religious power within the community to abuse people. So I would say it just grosses me out and it pisses me off that he thinks that that's such a good defense, when it's like, this is just all a smoke screen so you can get away with doing what you're doing and get a gun issued back to you and then immediately go and threaten your wife's family with it.
No, and that's why, in my opinion, if you've ever committed one incidence of domestic violence, if you're convicted or, in his case, plead guilty to it, you never get a gun again. You don't get a gun again ever. You just don't. Well, isn't it? Shouldn't we? No, don't hit people. Don't domestic violence, and then you can keep a gun. But like the pardon, because clearly it can be obtained through fraud.
Yeah, I would argue there are probably times when victims of domestic violence have been charged with their own domestic violence because they're trying to defend themselves. And I wouldn't want them to suffer the same consequences of not being able to get a gun to defend themselves if they had a charge of domestic violence on their record.
That's a good point. If he turned the tables and said, oh, well, she did this to me, and you have somebody that believes him, that's a fair point. It's like, why did one single judge be like, I believe you? And that's it.
All it takes is one. You never know. I mean, yes, they all take oaths and all that, but at the end of the day, they're also people, and we hope that they're unbiased. But if you've been watching this Karen Reed case, in my opinion, that is not the case. No. They are people at the end of the day, and they also make mistakes.
And have their own biases, yeah. Sinisterhood will be right back. Isn't it so much better when you do stuff for yourself at home? You don't have to go anywhere in the sweltering, blistering sun.
I try not to get out of the house during the day. I've become a vampire because it's just too hot. And most places you leave the house aren't open at 11 p.m. So then you're kind of left to do stuff for yourself.
You're like, do you have a 1 a.m. nail salon? And they're like, no, we closed 6 hours ago. Please leave and stop knocking on our window. And it's like, well, I wanted my nails done now. And it's like, you should have got Olive and June. Do them whenever you want.
Olive and June nail polishes last 7+ days and do not chip. Their Mani system is the ultimate secret behind salon perfect nails at home. All in one, no guessing, no messy nails, no salon price tag. And it all comes in one box. The Mani system I love things where everything goes in one place. So then when I want to get it, I can just grab one thing, take it to the living room if I'm doing my nails watching TV, or maybe into Ella's room. Ella, we got that quick dry nail polish. I'm telling you, it dries within 1 to 2 minutes. It's been a game saver.
Oh, man. And I like a self-contained, fun little project. And the thing about Olive and June, everything you need comes with that Olive and June mani system. And you can customize it by choosing your 6 polishes. It breaks down to just $2 a manicure. You can spend up to $35 for one gel mani.
Olive and June also offers press-ons. I've used them. They're great. They keep them so organized in the container they come in. And those quick dry polishes I was talking about, they dry in about a minute and they last 5 or more days. And they're offered in 40 plus cruelty-free and vegan polishes.
Visit oliveandjune.com/creepy for 20% off your first system.
That's oliveandjune.com/CREEPY for 20% off your first system.
Sinisterhood will be right back.
With increased media scrutiny and outcries from Mica's family, the Robeson County Sheriff's Department announced on May 15th that the FBI had begun investigating the case. Per Bureau policy, the FBI has not confirmed that it is investigating, but other law enforcement sources confirmed to News Nation that the South Carolina division is on the case.
And her family and attorney has said, send your tips to the FBI. So they're clearly involved. And if I was JP, I would shit my pants every day, every hour on the hour. Forever.
I mean, that's why he's got that Spider-Man costume on and just right in it.
Collect it. Yeah.
Is this SLED the same that got involved with Murdoch? Is that who's called in or above them?
This is the Federal Bureau of Investigation. This is not even state investigators.
The South Carolina division of the FBI.
Yes, it's the Fed, but their jurisdiction is federal. The FBI has branches, like we have a Dallas office and a Chicago office, but they don't answer to the state governor. They answer to the Department of Justice in Washington. So that does bring in an element if there's allegations of, were the sheriffs like just listening to JP and not doing their investigation? Did they, was he paid? Did he pay them? Did he blackmail them? I don't know. But if there are allegations of that, and if there's credible evidence of that, the Federal Bureau of Investigation has the authority to come in and investigate local law enforcement where there's allegations of, violations of our due process. We as citizens can't trust this local police. Please come and help us. Like the local police have turned on us essentially.
Yeah.
And or the FBI had received April 25th through the IRS a tip, hey, there's financial impropriety going on in this church. And then you go, we got this tip on the 25th. Let's call that lady. And you try to call her and you go, what happened to her now? Oh, the person she reported about? Well, we should probably look into this case, don't you think? And then they start digging around. So the Robeson County's like, please don't call us anymore because they took it out of our hands.
There's got to be a sense of relief with that as well.
On the one hand. On the other hand is you better hope that you didn't email, text, or say anything within earshot because the FBI will find it and will bust you for it.
In late May, journalists began investigating the operations of Solid Rock Church, which received tax-exempt status in 2015. Public records show the church owns assets totaling nearly $6 million, including the Market Common location valued at over $1 million, where JP delivered his chilling sermon the day after Mica's death. The church also owns a 2007 Cessna SR-22 worth $430,000, registered with the FAA on May 9th, 2024, after being acquired in January of 2023.
I'd like to know, it's small potatoes compared to everything else going on, but if they flew that Cessna between when they got it and when they're registered, you're not supposed to fly an unregistered aircraft, but maybe it was like undergoing maintenance or whatever. But it's interesting that, you get word that you've been federally, there's a federal investigation and you're like, I better register this plane that I haven't registered. Or maybe it's just a coincidence. I don't know. It could be a coincidence.
It also is just a red flag to me that why does this church need their own plane?
Work. It's always for
it's righteous gemstones. It's giving righteous gemstones.
It is. It's given like Equate brand righteous gemstones though, because it's not quite like they don't quite have all the money, but but you see how quickly
That's
and how
it
easily.
Starts though.
And it's so eerie when you watch JP's sermons because he said one time, if you want to know about my life, watch my sermons. And there's this clip that people have been circulating of him talking about the feeling that you have and then the action you have. And he goes, for instance, if you have this feeling of greed and you take tithing that's meant for the church and you spend it on your own stuff, that's the that's the external manifestation of that. If you feel hatred and anger and you murder somebody, that's the external manifestation of that. And everybody's like, those are really weird examples that you just gave and are very specific. To be clear, it was way before her death. But it's just like, that's interesting that was in your head at the time.
It shows the way, I think, kind of not even just at the time. I believe that he was abused throughout his own childhood I think he was also a victim at one time, and perhaps even remains one of his father now. But again, like we've talked about in so many cases, at some point, you being the victim is not as egregious as you being the perpetrator. And he's definitely crossed that line. But I think he's just evil, man. And I think that's just kind of the thoughts going through his head. And so then when you get on a pulpit and have 700 people who if you're a narcissist, you love that attention and you love being able to persuade people. And I mean, so that's his dream up there, getting to say that kind of stuff and feel like I'm not going to be judged. In fact, I'm celebrated and people love me because I speak the truth. I mean, him saying things like that is just another example of a pattern of decades long of violence.
Yeah. And of being, getting away with stuff for too long, which is what now a lot of these former parishioners are coming out of the woodwork going, oh yeah, well, we all kind of knew what he was doing to Mica, but then also here's a bunch of other stuff y'all don't even know about.
And I'm so glad they're coming out now. I would encourage anyone, when that is happening, to say something then, because unfortunately, this is the worst case scenario where now she's no longer here. And then you start hearing, dozens of people, hundreds of people knew what was going on. And as her family member, it would be very hard for me to hear all these people knew it was happening. I mean, they did too, and they were trying and doing whatever they could, but they were also going to the police and building a case, which arguably didn't seem to matter. But if you have 100 other people going to the police corroborating the same stuff, then maybe it becomes a stronger case and they start looking into it.
That's a good point of when you are a part of not just a church congregation, but, you're part of an organization and you do see abuse and corruption. We all have to stop saying, well, I don't really want to get involved.
Yeah.
It's like we all have to. We're each other's keepers, man. We got to get involved because otherwise you go, what's the point of even having a justice system? And it's like, well, it takes a huge mass of us paying attention and getting pissed and going, we've got to fire that police chief. We've got to fire that district attorney. We've got, and say, what did this medical examiner do? And really push and give a shit. Because I know we get really worked up about stuff like a case like this that's not near us. But I guarantee if you're listening, wherever you live, something similar like this has happened, not just in your state, probably your city, at least your county. And
Several times.
And those families are wishing that they had the push that Mica has. There's nothing against the Francis family. I'm very glad they have the support they do. But when we see cases like this, it's like, this is a microcosm. This isn't like, oh my gosh, this never happens. I think this is happening in a lot of places. And it's like, we got to whistle blow early and whistle blow often.
Yes. And something when you were talking that occurred to me too is another reason I think people knew what was going on within that congregation but didn't speak out is because of what we talked about last time, that some parishioners there had the same charges in the past. Or if you, as a man, are like, this is the type of life I want. I want to be able to control my wife and my kids, and I want a religion and a pastor that's telling me that's okay in front of my wife and kids. Well, you're not going to, ruffle anybody's feathers because you might not think it's wrong.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we just saw that with the Gateway Church here in South Lake, that the pastor came out, the main pastor, and said, I had this inappropriate relationship. And then now it is coming out with a minor, while other high-level people in the church were on the sex offender registry. And so,
God damn, I hadn't read that part.
Yes, I did see that. So we'll talk about so what do we think, my opinion on what should happen with churches like that. So
yeah, that sounds like a true crime headline story too. And just as a side note, if you're not from here, Gateway is a huge mega church in South Lake, which is a very wealthy suburb of Dallas.
Famously racist suburb.
Yeah.
There's a whole no, there really was a whole podcast.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Oh no. Yeah. It's and the only because I believe stuff was about to come out in court did he resign, and now I guess more people it's coming out that they had charges too. If you have ever been on a sex registry offender list, I don't think you should be allowed to work in any capacity where children are going to be.
Nope.
And that's my take for the day.
Mm-hmm.
Also in late May, a person named Ty Longerbeam posted a video of JP on Facebook he had taken years earlier. In the video, JP appears distressed and in a medication-induced stupor, lying on the grass, speaking in a high-pitched voice, complaining about ants and crying out for Jesus. It was not clear how Longerbeam knew JP, but he referenced JP's role at the church. The lengthy caption on the post read in part,
"Solid Rock, let me introduce you to your pastor. You don't see this on Sundays."
Longerbeam alleged that JP uses vulnerable information from parishioners against them if they question him. He called JP
a complete shit stain to all the other pastors that truly desire to lead people to the Lord,
accusing JP of
using and abusing for way too long,
and discrediting his victims from the pulpit by revealing degrading personal information in sermons.
And this is just this man's opinion. What he's posted, the video is JP, definitely. And I don't think it's defamatory to say he's a shit stain, a complete shit stain. I think it's pretty accurate.
It's fact, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's fact. But yeah, I don't know. I'm assuming he's a parishioner, perhaps worked at the church, but JP looks like he tumps out of a truck, which tells me that in the condition he's in, he was driving because he looked like he was having a real tough time and shouldn't be driving. And then does roll around and is like, I want to go to Jesus. I want to go to Jesus.
It sounds almost like he's saying, I thought I was going to see Jesus, or I thought I was with Jesus. He's clearly in... It's either drug-induced, psychosis-induced, but he's not well. And it was years before Mica's death, and even before they were married. Some have said it was around the time he and his ex-wife Allison were having issues, and that might have been the catalyst. I also saw something that said the driveway he had pulled into was a sheriff's driveway. I don't know if that's true or not, but if it is, that's kind of telling. And then maybe Ty Longerbeam is a neighbor or something, but he clearly is not a fan, but even then he's still got to continue doing what he was doing.
Yeah. It's like there's just been this cover up all along. And I wonder how that stuff got covered up, if it was through financial promises or through threats. And either way, people who have been receiving financial promises or threats, I would say you should probably call the FBI before they call you.
Right. Yeah. You don't want it to get to where they're knocking on your door, because by that time you're done. So
yeah.
On May 28th, JP's ex-wife, Allison Williams, who also goes by Allie, filed a sworn petition in family court alleging JP's increasingly unstable behavior. She claimed he involved their children in domestic disputes, traumatizing them. She described JP as
erratic and irrational,
noting he had admitted via text that he was not mentally fit to see his children. Allie provided the court a flash drive with extensive evidence to support her claims. Allie also accused JP of using their custody agreement to harass and control her. She expressed concern over his
deviant sexual addictions,
which he had admitted to her and church elders, and claimed he exposed their children to an unsafe environment, including his adultery. She reported that despite her request, JP discussed Mica's death with their kids. And before her death, Mica had confided in Allie about JP's troubling behavior and asked for help leaving. I think it's really telling that she was reaching out to his ex for help.
How did you get away?
Yeah. And knowing that it happened and believing her. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, he didn't do anything. Like, you're like, when he did this to you, how did I get how did you get away? I need you to help me get away. It takes a lot to reach out to the ex of your current partner, period. But with something like this going on, it's really sad. Yeah. And it's not something you want to have in common. Like, oh, we were both
Right.
abused by the same guy. Can you give me tips on how you left?
But I'm sure too, if you're like Micah and you've been isolated from your friends and family and support, and you've been all the things we'll get into, the allegations that you're like, who would even know what to do? Allie got away. I'll call her. And like, bless Allie for, despite having been cheated on by JP with this woman, having the kindness.
Nanny.
Who was their nanny, but having that kindness and going like, yes, I'm going to still extend a hand and help you. That's the true, like when people are like, what's the meaning of Christianity? That kind of stuff. Not all the shit JP does and manipulating and changing it. It's that true, like, help your neighbor. Like, even if turning the other cheek, she had something bad that happened to her and she still, by being cheated on, she still wanted to help.
In her supporting affidavit, Allie described how she witnessed the aftermath of JP's domestic violence against Mica, noting holes in walls and derogatory notes about Mica taped up around the house. During sermons, JP would publicly disparage Mica, calling her delusional to the crowd and to the children, before later recanting. Allie feared for her children's safety, as JP had access to guns, and Mica, now dead, had been the kids'
safety net
against JP, according to Allie.
And you can see from Allie's perspective how much damage that would do to your children. And you're like, what do I do? I'm desperate to keep my children from being told, like on stage, your stepmother is crazy and has crazy mental health problems. And at home telling them, you can't listen to her. She's crazy and delusional. And then being like, well, kids, I'm going to go. Mica will be staying with you. She's fine. There's nothing wrong with her. She's great. And it's like, I think he would call her crazy when it benefited him. And he would say she's fine when it benefited him. And I think that it was a lie. I think he made it up. I think he made her, a lot of it was a lie, I think.
Yes. She may have had some mental health struggles. I mean, she admitted to trying to have completed suicide in the past. So, but you can hold two truths in your hands at the same time. I also have mental health struggles, and I don't want somebody going around gaslighting everyone into thinking that I'm some crazy person when I'm not. And to have this in your house, notes put up around the house that are saying shitty things about you, and then knowing that these kids are reading that, but also as the kids, just, you're like, I can't escape this violence, this aggression, this abuse. Like everywhere I go, my church, my home, I'm sure when they were at Allie's house, but even then, she's like, how do I get information so I can help stop this situation? So it's like you never get time to just be a kid. You're in a constant fight or flight.
And you're right. And the part of the evidence that's included publicly, not the flash drive is not made public, but she had attached some evidence and included quotes and screenshots and things. And like he would text the kids when their older brother, JP's oldest son, it appears, was arrested for smashing a bottle over his wife's head or girlfriend's head. So when you have this information about your oldest son, why would you take that news article and text it to your minor child and go, check this out? Like, that's not, it's like she just said, like, he inappropriately texted the young kids and like would text them like strange and inappropriate things and drag them kind of into the drama. And you see that he clearly has a very inappropriate relationship with the kids as far as including them in his personal shit.
Yeah. The boundaries are definitely not there. Almost like, I'm proud of him. Look at this. Like most families would be like, this happened. It was awful. Let's sit down and talk about it as a family, but not like sending links to articles like, hey, look what your stepbrother did. It's almost like planting. I mean, it's grooming, maybe, like planting these seeds of like, this is acceptable. This is okay,
It's just, it's like, what is the explanation for that? And you're right. That's the perfect word, boundaries. It's like he doesn't know, like, you don't need to bring your girlfriend that you're sleeping with while you're married over to like hang out with your kids, or don't bang the parent of a kid that's on the soccer team with your minor, because everyone knows. Yeah. Like, and that's embarrassing for that child.
I don't think he thought about anybody but himself.
That's what it sounds like.
If he was, if something he wanted to do, it sounds like he did it. From 2021 to 2022, Allie received calls from Mica seeking advice and referrals for help on
how to free herself from JP.
Allie retained voicemails and texts from Mica and their group chat detailing JP's harmful actions toward the children. Recently, when JP discussed Mica's death with the kids, he boasted about
suing everyone and becoming a millionaire.
Allie's attached evidence included footage of JP discussing his mental health and lithium use, voicemails from Mica, and texts from JP, Mica, and even Mica's mom seeking help for her daughter. And copies of texts sent during one of their separations, JP texted Mica from his child's phone, pretending to be the child, asking her to come home. The court filings paint a grim picture of JP's behavior and its impact on those around him.
And that's the sick thing, is because the kids can tell, hey, mom, I didn't send these messages and I found these on my phone. And it's like, hi, it's me. Daddy cries without you. When can you come and be with daddy? And Micah's like, I'm so sorry, sweetheart. You should talk to your mom about this. I just want you to know I love you. But it's like the perfect response, a boundary. I love you. You did nothing wrong. I love you. And if you're upset about it, you should talk to your mom about it. Like, basically, like, I'm not going to engage. And it was like, well, daddy just wants you to come home. And he says, if you just come home, everything can be okay. And that if only you would just come home, daddy wouldn't cry no more. And it's like, you piece of absolute dog shit that you're manipulating this woman using your child. And like, Godspeed to Allison Williams. The fact that she had to have kids with this man and she's got to fuck around with them for however long, like, bless her heart.
Cut him out. Cut him out. He didn't get to be a dad anymore. Yeah, it's gross. And then I also think, okay, what if it worked and she came home and then, I mean, you're like, oh, such and such, I got your text. I didn't send that text. I haven't even had my phone. And then what next? More gaslighting, lying from JP? Is an admission of, well, I did that because you wouldn't come home unless it was for them. And that just shows you care about them more than me. All it would be is turned around and used against her.
Oh, every time. But it also shows us that JP is willing to pretend to be someone else via text message. So just plant that in your head and remember that.
Allison requested a full psychological and parental fitness evaluation for JP, a guardian ad litem for their children, a restraining order, and to halt all future visits. She also sought to keep the kids away from JP's father, Wayne. On May 29th, the court granted a temporary restraining order, barring JP from visiting the children.
And if you're listening and you're like, well, she's a bitter ex-wife, so she could just say anything she wanted. I just want to say, it's linked in our show notes. If you want to know, you can read it. All the allegations and the evidence. She has evidence for what she said. It is a sworn complaint, meaning she is under oath. It is a crime for her to lie. She can not only be held in contempt, she can be charged criminally, but also what she has requested is full psychological and parental fitness evaluation. And I believe she's open to one as well. Like, it's not like, oh, just test him. It's like, test both of us. And then a guardian ad litem is a special lawyer that the state pays for that's assigned to go, I don't give a shit what mom says. I don't give a shit what dad says. I'm going to listen to the evidence. I'm going to talk to the kids. I'm going to talk to the psychologist, and we're going to figure out what the best situation is for these kids. So the fact that Allison filed all this sworn under penalty of perjury and also under penalty of it's a crime to lie on a sworn statement in South Carolina. She has asked for neutral third parties to come in and evaluate. And to me, a person only does that if they have nothing to hide.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sinisterhood will be right back. We all know there are things in life that you have to compromise on. Like one time I had to live in this apartment because I couldn't afford a nicer apartment, and there was just the loudest partyingest people, and I never ever slept. And I thought, well, this is just how I live now. But when it comes to something like your health, there's no compromising on that. So don't go back to that one doctor who uses your whole appointment to catch up on the latest headlines or tell you about their family group chat or ask you for answers on the crossword puzzle they're trying to finish just because they happen to be the only doctor available now.
Instead, check out ZocDoc, the place where you can find and book doctors who will make you feel comfortable, listen to you, and prioritize your health. And you can search by location, availability, and insurance. So literally no compromises here, because with ZocDoc, you've got more options than you know.
Paris was like, I need a doctor. I think it was for his foot when he was running. And he's like, I said, ZocDoc, hello. And he's like, oh yeah, ZocDoc, duh, I have the app. I'm like, yeah, you find it in like 2 seconds and you don't have to go, oh, this person looks great, and they don't take my insurance and get that disappointment. You get your hopes up and you get to go see your person. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare highly rated in-network doctors near you and instantly book appointments with them online. We're talking about booking appointments with thousands of top-rated patient-reviewed doctors and specialists.
You can filter specifically for ones who take your insurance, are located near you, and treat almost any condition you're searching for.
Go to ZocDoc.com/creepy and download the ZocDoc app for free. Then find and book a top-rated doctor today.
That's ZocDoc.com/creepy. ZocDoc.com/creepy.
Sinisterhood will be right back.
In an unprecedented turn of events, JP discussed the ongoing investigation and answered questions from viewers during a live stream on TikTok from the pastor's driveway with @Justin on TikTok. While a separate content creator known as @TheIPhoneGuru, who happens to live down the street from JP, used his phone to film the interaction. JP used Justin's platform to speak out.
This is shocking.
It's cuckoo bananas. I've watched the whole hour and a half long thing.
Oh yeah.
So
I was just glued to it.
To kind of break down the players here. So @Justin on TikTok, he's doing a really good job of covering this case. He's on TikTok, but he also has a YouTube channel. @TheIPhoneGuru, another content creator who just happens to live down the street from JP. Wild. And then Robbie Harvey, who JP refuses to have anything to do with. He's also a content creator who's been covering the case. So those three content creators are all on a call together, which is being streamed on TikTok, talking about the case and everything. At the same time, @TheIPhoneGuru's girlfriend, saw something on TikTok about JP, and I guess they just were like, why don't you just go down there and see if he'll talk to us? Somehow they all had his number. And so they're also texting through this.
Justin is texting with him.
Yes. And then @TheIPhoneGuru just walks down there and JP's just getting out of his truck. And he's like, hey, can we talk to you? And because Robbie Harvey's on the call, JP refuses because he says,
he hates him.
My attorney friend advised me not to talk to you because you're involved in another defamation lawsuit that doesn't have anything to do with this case.
If you jumped off because he was advised by I think you said attorney?
Yeah, a friend of mine who's an attorney, not my attorney, but a friend of mine.
Okay, a friend of his that's an attorney.
Who's suing Robbie?
That's probably the best advice. Well, I don't.
So he jumps off the call, yada, yada, yada. Some texts go back and forth. Eventually, @TheIPhoneGuru goes back down there because JP via text with Justin is like, yeah, I'll talk to y'all if it's just the two of you. And then he just stands in his driveway doing this stream and he says, I'll answer stuff. It's crazy. He looks like he might be under the influence of something, that's speculation, but to just be like, sure, yeah, I'll go in my front yard in the middle of the night. It's dark outside in a suburb, and we'll just talk about this on TikTok.
And yeah, to think, not to mention when you're at the very least in the public's perception, you're a person of interest.
Yeah.
He hasn't been charged with anything. It's not, at no point has it come out that JP did this. The police haven't said it. All we know is that the FBI is still investigating. So to me, that would be the number one time to shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
But instead, he's like, oh, I'm going to go in my driveway and talk to strangers on the internet. But that juice of attention is so good. And if you're not preaching the sermons no more,
you got to get it out somehow. Yeah.
You got to get that attention. I don't know what it was, but he does sound odd and looks a little odd, but that's just my opinion. I don't know. I'm not an expert, but you all can view it and decide for yourselves.
Yeah, we have it linked in our show notes as well.
Okay, so tell me about yourself. What kind of show is this? Or is this TikTok? Are we on TikTok? And
this is TikTok.
Are you
also have
@TheIPhoneGuru held the phone while a bleary-eyed JP fielded questions from curious viewers. As comments flooded the stream, JP said,
I'll see. Let me say this. I want to answer everything, but I don't want to answer it without me holding up my proof and showing it to you because I think it's just ignorant for someone to just give, their opinion or say something and not have proof behind it when it's something as serious as this is. And so I'll be doing that next week, and I'll love to send you the the proof and everything along with the affidavit.
Amidst answering questions, JP commented on how
Cool.
it was that people were tuning in live. Several times, Justin let JP know the comments could be turned off if he preferred. Each time, JP declined, saying he didn't mind the questions, leading one commenter to accuse JP of loving the attention. JP laughed, saying,
What kind of attention? I haven't talked to anybody or seen anybody.
At one point during the stream, JP stated,
I'm not even start grieving yet. Not even 1 minute. Every time I go to, something else happens that I have to deal with. So I'm planning on, once this is all over, taking some time and doing what I need to do to grieve. But in my mind, she's gonna text me tomorrow and say, hey. So I haven't even started that. So
I didn't know that you pencil in scheduled times to grieve. In my experience, it just kind of happens when it happens.
I mean, once you're like, if you have like a room that's like, I don't know, 9 by 9 and you're not allowed to leave it for 23 hours out of the day, you grieve a lot. You probably grieve a lot of different things, your deceased loved ones, your career, your life, your money, your family, your freedom. But that'll be, I don't know, a year or so from now. But
what an odd thing to be like, I haven't even been able to grieve.
Me. That's all he says the whole time. Me. Attention, me. But yes, he's sitting there. It's obnoxious to watch. And he's like a boomer looking at the phone. He's like, are all these people watching me?
Yeah.
How cool.
What is this TikTok?
How
and these
many
people are saying this right now. And at the iPhone Guru is like, yeah, they're all typing it on their phone right now. And Justin is very respectful. Both the creators are very respectful towards JP, which I think is why he agreed to even do this and why he wouldn't give Robbie Harvey an interview, and offers multiple times, like, we can turn off all these comments.
Mm-hmm.
JP is such a boomer that he doesn't realize that they have turned off comments, or they have things set up to block comments. Well, he's just reading out loud the blocked comments because he didn't know not everybody else can see them. So he's like, somebody said, can we see your pupils? And then at the iPhone Guru's like, yeah, that's blocked. So no one else can see that. Only we can see that.
Blocks it out, turn nobody else can see what's
they can see, it says, can we see your pupils? Y'all can see my pupils.
Yeah, they can't.
I mean,
Everybody else can't see what they wrote. That's why it's X'd out.
Only you can see what they wrote. Oh, okay.
So it's like, you
He's
dipshit.
just reading them out. But yeah, guess what? That person commenting wasn't the only one asking to see his people.
No.
Because it was like, it's his manner of speech. It's kind of how he's standing and talking and stuff. And where did he come from that night? And he, did you roll in from? He's been described when he went out with Susie Skinner the couple of days after Mica's death. The witness that saw him there described him as sloppy. So it's like, it sounds like he likes to go out and have a good time. And it's like, you roll in your driveway and someone's like, can we interview you? And you're like, I'll go on the internet. I don't know. I don't know if that's what happened, but it certainly seems like he was very loose and willing to just kind of unfiltered, but
yeah,
he promised he wouldn't speak out. I want to, again, let's put this in our pocket and save it for a few minutes from now. He says, I don't want to answer anything without me holding up my proof and showing it to you, because it's ignorant to just give your opinion and say something with no proof behind it. So take that phrase, put it in your little backpacks, y'all. And as we proceed onward with JP.
I would argue what is also ignorant is to talk to some TikTokers in your driveway when maybe you're not being tried by the state, but in the court of public opinion, you certainly are. And I imagine his attorney was shitting himself when he realized this was happening.
You're like dead asleep and you wake up the next morning and it's like JP Miller makes statements on TikTok Live and you're like, God damn it. What fresh hell
well,
is
I guess
this?
I better go follow at Justin on TikTok in case this happens again. Got to keep tabs on my client.
Yeah.
Seemingly replying to comments saying justice for Mica, JP, who was wearing his wedding ring in the video, stated he wants the same, saying,
I do want justice for Mica, and I'm going to help bring that. I definitely want justice for Mica. Do you know how he's going to help bring that? Because he's going to go live on TikTok a bunch and make all these TikTok videos. So there'll be justice for Mica because he's going to, he can't stop talking.
We've told you in the past 2 episodes, he's going to hang himself. It's almost like this, nobody even, attorneys are going to have a very easy job because he's already done the job for them.
Mm-hmm.
When asked by @the_iPhone_guru if JP had anything he would like to say to those watching, he rambled on about the state of his relationship with Mica before her death, saying,
"Well, you can love somebody and be separated, and you can love them just the same, and be divorced. You can love them just the same and be with them. Sometimes things, it doesn't stop your love for the person. It's like having a kid that you love them and they do something you don't like, but you still love them the exact same."
After a few seconds, JP continued, addressing some of the allegations against him.
All the abuse that people are throwing at me. I just pray that none of y'all have to go through anything like this, because it's difficult.
Man, I wish I had that tiny violin that I won when we won the Traders game we played, because it's a tiny little violin that you can play and it goes. Because that's what I have to say about this. Again, the me. But also, it was very strange to me to ramble on about the love and comparing it to the love for your kids. And I can't say that I relate to any of that. The love I have for my kids is a different type of love that I have for my husband. And I wouldn't really use the analogy of, well, they can do something wrong and you still love them, and compare that to my spouse, who is my peer. It's just like kind of infantilizing her to like, well, she's a kid that did something wrong, and since she's a kid, I'm going to forgive her. And I also would argue, well, it might apply to some. Most people would say, I don't love the person that I was married to the same as when I divorced them, because I divorced them.
Yeah, especially I'm the one that filed because I was horribly abused. I do think I can shed some light on, I don't have a kid, but I can shed some light, I think, from his perspective on, talking about loving Mica the same way as, we're comparing her to a child, is because she was a child when he started grooming her.
Yeah.
According to her.
Honestly, yeah. And it would be curious if he ever stopped viewing her in that way. I think he always was the authority figure over her. And
having been in a relationship with someone 13 years older than me, especially being young, he would say stuff like, "All right, young lady, stop that, or I'm going to have to spank you." And at one point I went, "Stop, I actually have a dad and I have a good relationship with my dad. So whatever you're trying to do is not going to work with me." But that was just that one person. And we met like way later when I was already in my 20s. So if you have somebody that starts treating you like that when you're 14 and it never evolves, and you don't really know until you're up in your late 20s, early 30, about to be 30, this is not how I should be treated. You kind of are forced to go with it.
Yeah,
you don't know any better,
like we said, she was
scooped up
a victim for more of her life than she wasn't, which is tragic. When one viewer asked JP,
"Why no autopsy?"
JP claimed that he asked either the head nurse or the medical examiner about having an autopsy conducted, but was told,
"There's no need."
JP claimed the answer left him confused, saying on the stream,
"I just asked for one because I thought it was the right thing to do. Not that I thought anything. I just, I thought that's what you're supposed to do when someone dies young. You ask for an autopsy."
He went on to say that he asked the nurses,
"What about, finding out if she was on medicine, or what kind of medicine, or if she was pregnant or anything like that?"
and was told he needed a toxicology report. According to JP, this has been ordered and could be available anywhere from 3 weeks to 3 months from the date it was requested. JP ended this line of questioning, admitting that,
"I don't even know if it'll be able to tell me what I want to know, but we'll see."
What is it he wants to know? I don't think
I don't
anything.
know.
I think he just wants the control over that. And the pregnancy thing, is that's a red flag. The drugs in general, I don't know. Maybe he knew, maybe she was pregnant and that's gonna try to be used against the family as another way to hurt them. I don't know. I don't think that things that have come out have not indicated that she was. So
no, including
what a weird thing to say, though.
Yeah, and the medical examiner report would have shown that, I imagine.
But why would you? At the time, he didn't know that. So, like, why would you say that if not to, like, plant this seed of, like,
One of his narratives that he's been pushing is, I really want to have a baby with you, Mica, but you're just so crazy. I can't. And you're doing all this crazy stuff to me. And a person who wants to have a kid, if you're with a person who said, well, I'll have a kid with you only if you stop being so crazy. I mean, that's like a goal you can never get to, you know, because it's a made up goalpost that he just keeps moving and stuff. So perhaps it fits that narrative too.
Another viewer asked JP why he had Mica cremated, to which he replied,
I did that because that's what she wanted. We talked a lot about what would happen if one of us passed, and that's something Mica wanted and something I want as well, because we don't believe that the body matters as believers. And so that's what she wanted. Yeah. Which her family had said the same, that she wanted to be cremated, but just not like, I don't know, immediately, right away, very quickly.
It's also kind of interesting to me that he would say, we talked a lot about what would happen if one of us passed. You mean
a lot?
We talked a lot about what would happen if I killed you because you won't stop acting out, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting way to say that.
She said he threatened her many times, so.
Yeah. Well, and she used the phrase, I don't think I'll make it to the divorce. So yeah, I don't think that's an unreasonable thing to wonder about.
In addition to claiming he tried to have an autopsy conducted, JP also denied that he placed tracking devices on Mica's car, offering up an explanation.
A private eye did it because I told him to make sure if she goes near a gun store to give me a call. And I also thought maybe there were some other reasons.
Assuring viewers,
you'll find the results of that next week.
So far, JP has not provided any such information.
Just to clarify, the stream was May 30th, and we're recording this on June 25th.
Yes, I find it, well, first of all, to say I didn't place him, I hired a PI that placed it. Bitch, okay, are we going to get into a semantics argument? Get fucking whatever. Stop wasting everybody's time. But also, because if she goes near a gun store, so he already knows she went to a gun store. The public already knows she went to a gun store because there's footage of, or a pawn shop where she bought a gun. So that stood out to me as well.
So he's saying he hired a private investigator and presumably still had that same private investigator hired up through her death to be notified when she went to a gun store. And she arrived at the gun store at, I have the time right here. Hold on. She arrived at the gun store at 12:12 p.m. And let's just clarify, JP's truck was seen on Highway 17 in Horry County at 12:22 p.m.
Yes.
But he has an alibi. But he was on the highway in the same county 10 minutes from when she entered the pawn shop to buy a gun. And perhaps was followed by someone at a pawn shop that could be a private investigator. We don't know. The person just came in, didn't buy anything, was seen as she left, watching her leave out the window in the footage. I seen it myself. Yep. So I want to know who that person is, and is he a PI? And if so, what was his communication with JP? I don't have to ask these questions. The FBI is looking at it right now. They probably already know. But that is my curiosity and the type of thing that you would see at a trial, I think.
I can't wait for his digital evidence to be pulled.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I imagine. They're combing through it.
Well, no, that's not true because the Karen Reed trial, they have no problem arguing with digital evidence. We'll see how that turns out. But if he is communicating with the PI that has eyes on her right then buying a gun, there's going to be a phone call or a text about that.
Yeah, everything, every text he sent, every website he visited that day, and he can delete it, and it doesn't fucking matter if you delete it. It doesn't get deleted. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't. You just dig deeper.
Just know that everything you text, search for, phone calls you made can be retrieved.
Dug back up.
I mean, it might take some digging, but it can be. So just know, even if you're incognito, so just know that like all that text, like it could be read in a court of law. Would you want all of these in a court of law? And if the answer is no, then I wouldn't suggest putting it in a text message.
100%. Sinisterhood will be right back. Helix Sleep is a premium mattress brand that provides tailored mattresses based on your unique sleep preferences.
Man, I can't say enough good things about Helix. There's been several people lately that are like, I have to get a new mattress. I'm like, don't sleep. on Helix. Sleep on it because
Sleep on
it's
it.
great, but don't miss it because it's the best mattress I've ever had. And when we're away on tour from it, I miss it deeply. I might start writing it letters because that's how much I miss it when
Same.
we're gone.
I'm like, dearest Moonlight Lux, I'm in Raleigh dreaming of you, literally.
The Helix lineup offers 20 unique mattresses, including a mattress designed for big and tall sleepers and one made just for kids, which Ella loves.
Helix knows there's no better way to test out a new mattress than by sleeping on it in your own home. That's why they offer a 100-night trial and a 10 to 15-year warranty for you and your child to try out your new Helix mattresses.
Every body is unique. So whether you sleep on your side, your back, your stomach, maybe all of the above, Helix has a mattress for you. Plus, what we need more than ever is the enhanced cooling features that help regulate your body temperature no matter what the season is.
The setup is fast and easy. Helix mattresses are delivered in a box straight to your door for free. By supporting Helix, you're allowing them to support us and our show.
Helix is offering 30% off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners. Go to helixsleep.com/creepy. That's helixsleep.com/creepy. This is their best offer yet, and it won't last long. With Helix, better sleep starts now.
Sinisterhood will be right back.
Arguably the most eyebrow-raising response from JP came after @Justin on TikTok told the ex-pastor that if he ever wanted to discuss the allegations against him, Justin would provide a respectful platform to do so. In JP's bizarre reply, he seemed to skirt the issue, instead implying the police reports are full of lies, saying,
There's something I learned through this that I don't think the world knows, or I don't think America knows, and that is, on a police report, you can lie and say anything you want to say.
You can say that Big Bird killed Cookie Monster on Sesame Street and they have to write it down. So a lot of people take police reports as fact, as the fact that somebody said it. The thing is, people can actually lie on affidavits. You can write anything you want on an affidavit and it doesn't matter. To me, this is fucking crystal clear. The fact that he truly thinks you can write anything you want on an affidavit and it doesn't matter. Say anything you want to a judge that's going to pardon you in order to get a gun. Call a police and lie. Making a false police report, that is actually a criminal infraction. Lying on an affidavit, you can be held in civil contempt and it's a criminal infraction. Lying to a judge.
Lying to a cop, isn't that something too?
It depends on this. You could be charged as like impeding an investigation or obstruction of justice or whatever. But yeah, you're right. And so for him to think and to say this, anybody can say whatever they want. To me, that indicates how he feels about affidavits and police reports, that he has been, because later on, spoiler alert, iPhone Guru went up to like interview him. He filed a police report against iPhone Guru and said, this guy's trying to attack me and hit me and da-da-da-da. And people are like, we were there and filmed it and none of what he said on the police report happened. So now he's now lying on a different later police report. So it's just interesting. His opinion of affidavits and police reports seem to be flippant. You can lie about Cookie Monster and say whatever you want. Meanwhile, other people are like, I am swearing under oath and here's a hard drive with like gigs worth of evidence backing up what I'm saying. I'm not lying to you.
I think it's his way. He thinks he's being, first of all, before I even get into that, don't you dare bring Big Bird and Cookie Monster into
Sesame
your
Street out of this
bullshit. Do not
as two
besmirch
residents
the good name of those two sweet angels and anything Jim Henson had to do with, okay?
No, I said as residents of Sesame Street because I just gave you Bird
Oh,
and
you
Ernie.
did. I
as
explained
residents
all
of
of that to
Sesame
Ella
Street.
the other day. She was like, what's that? I had to be like, well, Heather's Ernie, so I keep Ernie in the studio so she can always be here. And then she has Bert because I'm Bert. And she's
So
like,
we're never apart.
because you're taller? Is that why you're Bert? And I was like, well... amongst other things, their personalities and everything.
Like Bert's also yellow and yellow is like blonde. So if it's but yes, as residents of Sesame Street, we take umbrage with this statement. Don't keep Big Bird and Cookie Monster name out your mouth.
But also, I think he thinks he's basically saying all those police reports where people said I was abusing her, she said I was abusing her, that's just made up because you can say whatever you want. Without realizing, because he's such an idiot, that you're saying that about yourself too. So now you're admitting like, I can say anything I want on a police report, even the ones I filed, because he filed charges against her too. So he's so stupid that he doesn't realize the things that he's trying to plant in people's mind to acquit him and, in the court of public opinion are really just putting more nails in the coffin.
Yeah, oh no, he's the beautiful mix of just ignorance and arrogance.
Yeah.
That when you just pour it out, it's nothing but just telling on himself. Like every time that's why I was like, this is a perfect time to shut the fuck up. Just shut up. He shouldn't have made this video or any of the next 6 videos we're about to not detail entirely, but tell you about. But it's like, shut the fuck up but it's that ignorance and that arrogance and that just absolute abject
narcissism.
Stupidity. Abject stupidity and the arrogance of like, well, I can get away with it though, because I have so far.
Mm-hmm.
I ran a woman down with my car and still ended up with a gun, so I can do anything. You have that sort of, I think I'm untouchable, and it's like, you'll get yours. Oh, you'll get yours. O'Doyle rules. It's like, I have a feeling it's happening for your whole family, O'Doyle.
I hope so.
Mm-mm.
On June 2nd, dozens of protesters stood outside Solid Rock Ministries, holding up signs and wearing T-shirts that read,
"Justice for Mica."
Amidst chants of,
"Your silence is permission."
Those gathered mourn the loss of Mica while taking a stand against domestic violence. Inside Solid Rock, a small congregation worshiped, seemingly remaining faithful to JP and the church. As they left services, church members expressed their disdain for the protesters by calling the cops on them and flipping them off. Despite the outward shows of aggression, protest organizer Alexandra Cuozzo told WSPA 7 News that the growing group has no intentions of fading away, explaining why their presence is so important.
"Just to let the church know that we are not going anywhere. We're going to be here every Sunday. Even if it's not a huge group, there's always going to be people here every Sunday until we find justice for Mica."
Good for them.
Bless them.
Don't go quietly into the night. And I think that group will continue to grow as the congregation continues to dwindle.
Yes, the other day they were out there again, and it looked like Trisha Ross, who it's sort of been said she's JP's kind of right-hand woman, helps him with stuff, I guess maybe since Mica died or since they got separated. She went out and I think sat on the ground and was like kind of trying to pray with her hands up, I guess almost like trying to use a Jedi mind force of Jesus to like get the protesters to go. And I'm like, I have some news for you, lady. Jesus ain't in that church behind you. He's standing with the protesters. He's standing with blessed are the meek. You know what I mean? He's standing with the woman who is severely abused, not the loudmouth man that did the abusing.
Yeah. Footage emerged on June 2nd on X, formerly known as Twitter, showing JP wearing a Spider-Man costume as he walked from his truck into his house. Other images emerged in early June that showed him driving around Myrtle Beach in his DeLorean, a replica car from Back to the Future. JP has not provided an explanation for the odd behavior.
You're like, what are you doing, man? He's like, I'm just vibing.
Just
like, that's not a time to vibe. Yeah.
In my DeLorean, dressed like Spider-Man. It's wild. Yeah, I don't have an explanation for it. He didn't even have one. So how is anyone else to? On June 5th, attorney Regina Ward announced a temporary settlement had been reached in divorce proceedings between JP and Mica, with Sierra serving as her sister's representative. Mica's personal property, including her purse, phone, and any other items that are currently in custody of police, will go to her family once all authorities release them. The car Mica was driving the day she died belonged to her 85-year-old roommate, Diana, and will be returned to Diana upon its release from authorities. Oof.
Yeah.
Has anyone checked on Diana?
Right. Bless her heart.
Goodness.
She lost her friend and roommate and, got wrapped up in this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy for the family that they're going to get these items because JP was fighting to get these, just like we didn't even cover it in an episode, but right after Mica passed away, he showed up to Diana's apartment where he believed that Mica's journals were and was screaming, trying to get in there. And the manager was like, no, fuck off. You don't live here. That lady lives here. Like, get out of here. And so Regina Ward, the attorney, ended up with all the journals and diaries, which he so desperately wanted. So desperately wanted those journals. And you go, you really wanted those journals. Why? And Regina Ward's like, I've brought a few binders to this press conference. And those binders are based on the contents of the journals.
Which details years and years of every type of abuse you can imagine. If I knew that that had been written down about something I had done, I would also want those journals. And I'm very glad that he didn't get them. And also, this was a time where you don't write it and regret it. In fact, it's hopefully going to send him to prison.
Oh, yeah. Keep a journal.
During the remainder of the hour-long press conference, Regina Ward encouraged voters to pressure South Carolina lawmakers to pass the coercive control bill. She requested that it be renamed Mica's Law and proposed amendments based on the information she obtained from Mica's journals. The list of behaviors she mentioned was jaw-dropping, though she added that JP denies all allegations and has never been charged.
You can go to justiceformica.com and click on Mica's Law and then scroll down. And Regina Ward has prepared what she calls Mica's List. So she took the coercive control bill as it was proposed by the South Carolina legislature, but has not been passed into law. This is just the proposed bill. And she applied each different type of behavior enumerated in the law. Underneath, she has added facts that Mica detailed in her journal or emails or text or other evidence. For the first, it's 5 pages long, single spaced, and it's enumerated. And she goes A through Q for all the ones that were included in the coercive control bill. And then she adds another 16 different types of abuse that Mica had detailed in her journals, but that would not be covered by the initial coercive control bill.
Wow.
I will briefly read some of these, but I urge you to go to justiceformica.com, click on Mica's Law, and whether you're in South Carolina, if you're South Carolina, email your reps, email your senators. It matters. Stuff like this especially matters. And no matter what state you're in, email your reps and senators. I'm talking about state ones, not federal. So you got to find who your state rep is. And if you don't have a coercive control bill on the books, having something like this, because it's the normal stuff we hear about: isolating her from friends and family, depriving her of basic needs. She alleges JP wouldn't let her sleep, kept her up at night, pulled covers off of her, threw her clothes on the front lawn, woke her up screaming at her incessantly to the point that she had to go sleep in the car, stalking her and tracking her whereabouts. We've heard of monitoring her communications. She wrote, JP took her cell phone, went through her text messages and call logs, and claims he found 18 people that had texted her that they were willing to listen to her if she ever wanted to talk about JP, which he admitted this in a sermon. He also hacked her email, her iCloud, her Facebook account, took over her identity. He controlled who she could associate with. He deprived her of social support services. So she wanted to try to get like a lawyer, and he's like, you don't need your own lawyer. You can use mine. Expressing her worthlessness, humiliating, degrading her, calling her not smart, telling her or others that she just fell for everything and she just wasn't smart, and uploading the nude photo, preventing disclosure to authorities. When she would say that she was going to expose JP, he would abuse her even more, tell her that she was not a Christian, not a dutiful wife, that she was acting like a judge. Financial abuse, it says that he paid her less than minimum wage for more than full-time work, removed her from bank accounts, and told her she did not know how to manage money. However, he also required her to pay her own car payment, car insurance, and medical bills, threatening her family physically, threatening to publish private information, assault. He punched holes in the wall. It says that he threatened her with a gun. Rape. It says that he demanded she have sex with him while she lied in the hospital bed, and that he forced...
damn.
I think from the surgery, forced her to perform sexual acts against her will, demanded that she watch him in sexual acts with others, forced her to sit still so that others could touch her body against her will. He told her and preached on Sunday that if she did not submit to his every request for sex in any manner he desired, then if it was her fault if he got his needs fulfilled by another woman or man. That is verbatim what was written. Preventing her from transportation, slashing tires, and interfering with work. He would fire her from the church for disobeying him. And then the other 16 things that she listed was emotional abuse, everything stated above, ignoring requests to leave her alone. It says that she asked him over and over, he would not. And after a police officer warned him to leave her alone, he trespassed into her gated community to leave a gift on top of her car, which we've talked about with stalking with the Peggy Clinky episode. Cruelty to her dog. He threw all of her stuff out of the house and said, come get the dog. When she couldn't keep it at the apartment she was living in, she rehomed it to a new family. He went to that family. Well, first he took it and strung it to the door and left it outside alone, the small dog. Destruction of property, like all of her things. I mean, it goes down. it goes down at 16, but things that I think are important are misuse of legal processes. It alleges that he filed papers in probate to have her involuntarily committed. I want to know what attorney was working with him on these, and then misuse of law enforcement, saying that he would use police to help abuse her. So stuff like that, I think, needs to be further investigated beyond. It's not just JP's actions that he's taken. It's like he's using law enforcement officers and perhaps a member of the bar to further his abuse and PIs. So when we see these coercive control people now hiring a third party to help them too, I think liability has to lie with everybody. But go to justiceformica.com and read that list, and we'll put it, we'll make a post, and we'll link it in the show notes so you can go read it.
It's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot to have survived for as long as she did.
And you can see why he'd really want those journals.
Yeah, for sure. In early June, JP began making statements through a TikTok account called @TrueCrimeRe. The account owner's identity has not been verified, with some believing JP created the account himself. Across a series of 6 videos, JP makes serious claims about his and Mica's relationship and what happened between the two. The first video was posted on June 9th and featured JP standing in front of a life-size Spider-Man statue in what appeared to be his home. JP told viewers why he hadn't spoken out before, saying,
"My silence is nothing more than wisdom and self-control so that we can win the war that is up ahead."
He insulted 2 TikTokers by name, then promised,
"We're going to find out who's responsible for my wife's death, and Mica will have justice when it's all said and done. I'm going to make sure of it."
Over the course of 6 videos posted on the True Crime Re TikTok page, JP appeared jovial in some moments and nervous or sniffing in others. The video labeled Part 2 began with,
"Tonight's video is going to be a little lighthearted,"
before JP said his goal is to
debunk a new lie every night.
I don't think lighthearted and going live to discuss your wife's suicide should really be in the same sentence.
Or, I don't know, if I was going to talk about that, I would go stand in front of Elwood, the life-size Elwood statue. No shade to people who have life-size statues in their house. I've got 2 of them. But if I'm making a very serious video to make statements about allegations against me or something serious that happened in my family, I'm not going to go and stand in front of Elwood Blues in my kitchen. And it's strange that he's like angled himself, but a psychologist on TikTok's like, well, if you're trying to make it seem less serious, that's like one way to do it, is kind of stand in front of it.
I got the impression he, I don't know, so maybe that was like his office or something. And it seemed like it was like, I thought, oh, this must be where he, like in the movies, how Tony Stark has like an area where his suit is kept. I was like, this must be where he keeps his Spider-Man suit, like standing up on some kind of a mold or something. But yeah, there's another video where he's wearing a Back to the Future t-shirt, and if you're watching on YouTube, you can see he's got his arm just draped up over his head, like in this casual, like you would watch TV, I mean, it's put on a fucking collared shirt and have some dignity. Like, I mean, present yourself like you want to be taken. And it seems like he doesn't want to be taken seriously because he looks like just I don't know, like somebody that's going live from their mom's basement with all their shit around them.
2 or 3 of the videos, he's driving in a car. He's not just sitting in his car. He's physically moving. You can see the road, and he's behind the wheel. So he's also sniffing like the accountant in Seinfeld, which he later said in one of the videos, "I have a tick since childhood," but everyone's like, he's like, so then and it's like, well, that's a little noticeable, but he says it's a tick, so that's what he said. But yeah, you're right. The unserious nature is really what throws you off.
It does. Yeah, it's unsettling. During a video posted June 11th, labeled Part 3, a casual-looking JP talked more about his tattoos, this time alleging that he and Mica got symbolic couples tattoos at her suggestion. According to JP, Mica wanted him to get a tattoo of her signature, which he did. JP claimed Mica wanted a thick band tattooed on her left ring finger so that when she wasn't wearing her wedding ring, people would still know she was married. JP told viewers,
"That's not something that someone who's being abused does."
That's not true. Also,
Not at all.
I don't, this is speculation, but it probably wasn't her idea that to get a tattoo, something on your hand that is permanent for the most part, you know,
No, and you
to
also
show you belong to somebody.
No, true. And in a cycle of abuse, we have a honeymoon stage where you do feel like, oh, finally, it's all better. It's in love. I'll get the tattoo and that'll fix everything. So you can't say, oh, a person that's abused never does something that shows they love their abuser. We do it all the time.
Yeah. Or she was coerced into that and it wasn't even her idea to begin with. In this same video, JP addressed critics who slammed him for delivering a sermon the day after his wife's tragic death, explaining that despite multiple people telling him it was a bad idea, he ultimately proceeded.
Because at first, I didn't believe it.
Lamenting that he had
spent the past 3.5 months doing everything I could to keep her alive.
And that no one would believe him when he said she would kill herself without her lithium. Further painting himself as the victim, the disgraced pastor added,
I'm sure you can imagine what a failure I felt like.
Me. JP then switched tactics, saying that at the time, he thought the news about Mica's death wasn't true, accusing her family of
tricking me or something.
He then changed his tune again, explaining that if the news was true,
I don't want to deal with it. I don't really want to do anything. I just want to keep living my life as if it never happened.
JP said he told his parishioners not to discuss the announcement of Mica's death because he didn't want
anybody to be talking about, mental illness or asking me questions. I wanted them to leave and go talk to Jesus about it and then talk to me at some later date. I was not prepared to deal with it all. I'm sure you cannot imagine what it's like to be trying your best to keep somebody alive and then to find out they passed. Me.
I'm going to throw up in my lap. This is so, oh man. And what irritates me the most is that he thinks he's being suave and smooth and like nobody can see through this bullshit facade that he's putting on, sandwiching like these, well, I'm doing her a favor. I didn't even want to be, but also at the same time, again, planting the seed of mental illness. She wasn't well. She did this herself. I didn't know how to deal with it. And as far as I don't want to deal with it, I don't want to deal with anything. I just want to keep living my life as if it never happened.
Yikes.
Wouldn't her family like to be able to say those things? I mean, like you don't get that luxury. It's and then of course he ends it again with, well, you just don't know what it's like to be me. This burden I'm carrying. I mean, it's amazing that I'm even standing up here. I should be, given an award for that.
Yeah.
JP posted several more videos, including one in which he explained how he and True Crime Re got connected. Allegedly, JP received multiple offers to tell his story from people all over the world. He said,
True Crime Re called me and she had no ulterior motives whatsoever.
He claims,
she started by being very kind to me.
He wanted to share his story to help himself heal, and his lawyer approved him sharing bits and pieces. However, after this video on June 19th, no further videos of JP have been shared on the page or elsewhere.
I also ran that profile photo of True Crime Re through a couple of websites that tell you if an image is AI generated, and it's either 67% likely that it is or 91% likely that it is AI generated.
Those are two very different percentages.
Yeah. I think the websites are like, I can't really, it's blurry, but it's over 50% likely that it's AI generated. True Crime Re has not said, hi everybody, my name's Rebecca and I'm here to tell you that I'm actually True Crime Re, and JP called me and it's all been videos of him and then some things about a different case. So people can't really tell if it's a real person. Dr. Leslie Dobson is a TikToker with a pretty large following, and she made a strange video that True Crime Re reposted in which Dr. Leslie Dobson seems to be anti-JP. She seems to be calling out traits that she thinks, jive with narcissism, yada, yada. But she said, I just want to say my PI confirmed that True Crime Re is a real person, but if people keep messing with the account, quote, you will lose access to JP. So she never said it wasn't him. She just said she confirmed it was a real person. But the videos are obviously JP and they're new and they're answering comments. So it's not, but it's not answering comments using like the TikTok feature. It's strange how they're edited, but I'm curious to know who True Crime Re is. They posted a video of it's a CapCut generated green screen video of a picture of JP preaching, and then you use it to make an AI generated JP, and he's like twerking and dancing. It's weird. It's a weird. I'll post it on our social media. I can't explain it, but it's like, what is, if you're like trying to help the case, what are these weird videos, like a funny picture of JP dancing? To me, that screams something JP would post because he thought it was cute of himself.
Made himself look good.
Yeah, he claims that it's a whole other person, but I'd be fascinated to find out if True Crime Re exists, and if she does or he does, or she does, he genders her as a she, who she is.
I'm curious because it's spelled R-I. True Crime RI, but it's pronounced Re. What the RI is.
Yeah,
Rhode Island. But I mean, I was trying to think, like, if he made this, like, what could that possibly be the beginning to? I don't know.
Yeah, or stand for. But yeah, all these videos is just him lying and lying. He's like, she went deep in schizophrenia. She was delusional and said I slashed her tires, but I didn't. And it's like, again, man, why are we listening to you just lie to our faces?
Yes. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, he's like, she said I stalked her, sent a naked picture, things I didn't do. She was delusional. And it's like, bitch, yes, you did. No. Yes, you did.
Yeah, thereby, she's not delusional. She was being very honest. On June 21st, it was reported that JP had filed a motion in court to seal all documents related to the pending divorce case. The motion stated it was intended to protect Mica's public image, which JP claimed was at risk of being tarnished due to
evidence of her mental illness, medical neglect, and or criminal behavior.
JP argued that sealing the records would avoid
unnecessary prejudice or embarrassment
for both himself and Mica, as well as his minor children and the church. He also claimed it would ensure
a fair trial.
A hearing on the matter has been set for September. At the same time, screenshots began circulating online of texts allegedly from JP. The messages appeared to be soliciting damning information about YouTubers and TikTokers who had criticized him. Along with the text, a photo of a solid rock check was posted, showing the memo marked
benevolence.
The funds were allegedly used to pay sources of damning information. Though the sender of the text and the purpose of the check have not been verified, the information was sent to the FBI as part of its investigation.
Someone else also came forward and said, I don't know if it was a coworker or somebody that knew Mica, that said, I was going to go forward, but I got this text allegedly from JP saying you might want to think twice before you come forward. So again, it's like, if he is, I don't know that he is, these could all be fake and made up, but if he is either texting, asking for damning information about content creators, or not so subtly threatening witnesses, oh, stop it, sir. Yeah. Throw your phone in the ocean and don't get a phone or the internet. Like, I don't know why I'm trying to help him, but it's just like, I think from a criminal defense attorney perspective, I'm always like, what are you doing? You're doing more crimes so
especially
publicly.
You've now involved the church too, and church funds, which adds an extra layer of, I don't know, embezzlement, fraud, misappropriation of funds, whatever it might be. But if he also sent that, I mean, there is a picture of a solid rock, what looks to be a solid rock check with this written out. Somebody had to have written it.
Yeah. And for what? Like I said, maybe it's an unrelated check and everyone's making it all up. But if I was going to make up a fake internet lie, I would not also then call the FBI and be like, I'm trying to tell them myself. I'd be like, I got this weird message. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's a hoax. You figure it out.
On Monday, June 24th, the medical examiner's report in the case was made public. The report noted 2 spent shell casings and a live round were found on the riverbank. The gun was discovered in the water, 5 feet from the riverbank, using a magnet. Mica's body was found in the river, submerged face down, about 100 feet from the casings. Despite being found in a prone position, face down, livor mortis was noted in the posterior. One of the first stages of death, livor mortis is the process where blood pools in dependent tissues following cessation of the circulation, according to Science Direct, and occurs between 1 to 2 hours after a person has died.
So the 911 call was at 2:54, and then they eventually, the kayaker and everything, found her body around 4 o'clock, if I'm recalling correctly. And so I think, perhaps it could be the lividity being on her posterior, on her back, would be because they took her out and lied her on the riverbank for however long as they secured the scene and stuff. But also, she would have been at least an hour and a half, almost 2 hours, face down in the water. I don't know. It's just strange. The scene in general. I need a diagram, is what I told you yesterday. I was like, being 100 feet from 2 spent shell casings, and then the gun was in the water, and then she's 100 feet from that.
I'm trying to map it all out in my head, and no, it doesn't make sense to me either.
Yeah, to have the gun is 5 feet from the riverbank, so it's not like I don't know where she was standing, I guess, is my question. And it's, you sort of have to get into these gruesome final moments of where everybody was. But if you're out in the woods and you make that call and say, I want my family to be able to find me, and then the incident happens on the bank of the river, I don't see why the gun would not have fallen next to the shell casings, why the gun would have been chucked 5 feet from the riverbank, submerged down in water such that they had to search and use a magnet to get it out.
I also don't know how she would wind up in the water.
Correct. Face down, submerged with a log over her body is what her sister said based on crime scene photos. The medical examiner's report does indicate she was submerged face down 100 feet from shell casings. And Johnny Jacobs, as well as the kayaker, said it was stagnant, non-moving water. They called it a slough. It was not a rushing river. It's like a pond-esque thing, which I guess there can be some movement, but it's interesting too to have 2 spent shell casings.
Yeah, and a live round.
Yeah, ejected.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I noticed was the lividity. I thought was kind of weird.
The whole crime scene of the placement of things does not make sense to me. If that is your expertise and you can make sense of it, we would love to hear, because trying to map all of that out doesn't seem like it's even possible, because once a person shoots themselves, they're going to fall where that happened. And typically in these scenes, the gun is either still in their hand or near them. And that was not the case here.
Yeah, I don't understand how you have shell casings and then which are on or near the riverbank in the ground, and then how have everything be separated by 5 feet and then by another 100 feet. It doesn't track. I don't know.
Unless there is rushing water where a body would be moved by the force of that, or the weapon could be moved by the force of that.
Which did not seem to be the case here, so.
Yeah. The report noted closed skull fractures, 2 black eyes, wounds on her hands, and a gunshot wound above her right ear, with an exit wound above her left. The report noted a recent prescription for hydroxyzine for anxiety, issued 2 days before her death. Authorities found no concern for foul play, and an autopsy was deemed unnecessary. There is no mention of JP requesting an autopsy, despite him claiming he asked for one, although he was entitled to request one under North Carolina law.
Yeah, the injuries, the closed skull fractures, I saw a undertaker give his opinion on it and say, we've seen that in cases where there is a gunshot wound to the side of the head. There was stellation marks where the gun would have been pressed up, like a muzzle would have been pressed up against the head. Some people have pointed to the kind of size differential between the entry wound and the exit wound as being meaningful. I don't know enough about that to comment on it, but if you're a forensic pathologist or a medical examiner or something and you want to take a look and
trajectory.
Yeah, or like which one was the entry wound, which one was the exit wound, and just based on the sizing. But I think that's just people's conjecture. And the black eyes, I think, are a result of that, just massive trauma internally to your head whenever you do suffer a gunshot wound. But the hands on the wounds are described as scratches on her hands from briar and bramble pulling her out of the water. So it's interesting that the medical examiner's report wrote that those injuries were from being pulled from the river, whereas her sister said, I asked, could that be from pulling the river? And they said no. So that's an interesting differential. And JP said, I was with Mica 4 times and there was nothing on her hands. There was no scratches, no bruises. There was nothing. Well, now we have a medical examiner report going, yeah, there's a bunch of scratches on her hands, but it was from the bramble. So again, you have JP saying the sky is purple. And we're all like, we've got eyes. We have looked. It is blue today, but thanks for trying.
The FBI is still conducting its investigation. Solid Rock Church has seen its membership drop dramatically from 700 members down to around 50. Mica's death has been officially ruled a suicide, and so far, no charges have been filed against John Paul Miller. However, Mica's family has not ruled out the possibility of a wrongful death lawsuit. Mica's sister, Sierra Francis, is serving as her personal representative in legal matters. The Francis family remains steadfast in their quest for justice. On the official Justice for Mica website, the family asks to be sent any tips or information as they continue to fight. Writing,
Mica's favorite scripture was Micah 6:8. Seek justice, love mercifully, and walk humbly with your God. And that's exactly what we intend to do.
anyone with information pertaining to the investigation in South Carolina is asked to contact the Columbia FBI office at 803-551-4200. Mica's attorney, Regina Ward, is working with the family and accepting tips via her law office. You can send them via email to justiceformicatips@gmail.com. There is also a GoFundMe to support the Francis family's legal efforts, available at justiceformica.com, linked in our show notes. We also strongly encourage everyone to contact the lawmakers in your own state to have coercive control bills on the books to prevent situations like this. So what do we think?
There's just so much, I think, going on that you need an agency like the FBI to be involved to make do an appropriate and extremely thorough investigation, and then to make appropriate referrals. And I think it might be a Murdaugh situation where you go, we're here to investigate the murder of Paul and Maggie, but what happened to Gloria Satterfield now? Where you say, now back in 2021, what happened to Chris Skinner? Who was he going to meet? Where did that footage go, that hour of footage that's missing out of the police report? So I think we're going to see a chronological, maybe not chronological but a step by step investigation of, now he got how did he get that gun? Oh, because he got a pardon. Well, how did he get the pardon? Oh, through fraud. Then we're going to revoke that. You know, I think he'll face each and every one in turn.
I hope he does. And I hope that it also drags out all the abuse that his father has inflicted upon various people over the years, and anybody else that needs to be brought to light. This just seems, there's so much evidence that she was suffering a myriad of abuse, that if she took her own life, I think everyone could look at her life and be like, she was miserable. This was a horrible, but by all accounts, she was making strides to change that. She had changed some things. She was excited about new stuff happening in her life. She told multiple people, if I end up with a bullet in my head, it wasn't me, it was JP.
Yes. And I think you're right. I think the circumstantial evidence around it all points away from a suicide, from statements like that she made, statements saying, I'll see you at work tomorrow, like very forward-looking, short-term plans that could be followed up on booking a haircut, things like that. And then what the big piece of this that's missing, that I think is the type of what I keep calling the Snapchat angle, because when we talked about the Paul and Maggie Murdaugh murders, we didn't know that Paul Murdaugh had Snapchat videoed his dad at the scene. We just didn't know that, and we couldn't know that because we're not SLED, right? And so whatever that smoking gun, quite literally is in that case, we don't have it yet.
Yeah.
But I think the people to find it are going to be the FBI for sure. And so in the meantime, what JP needs to do, if literally devil's advocate, is shut up. If he doesn't, I think what you'll have then, if there is ever a murder trial or a charges for whatever it is, you have a really, really untrustworthy defendant who will be extremely easy to impeach, because he's lied openly, publicly, 4 or 5 different ways, like since April 27th. So God knows when it, ends up, if it ends up at a trial.
Yeah. I think he has shut up because
Yes.
his lawyers told him to, and that's why we're not seeing him go live anymore or posting anything. He finally listened to somebody that was like, you are not helping your case. But
Yeah. And some of the local creators have been saying that like literally went to Myrtle Beach or going around to all these places. You know, they've been kind of live updating going, hey, we just saw like guys in black suits and like town cars that look like FBI agents like going into this place. I've heard somebody that worked at this place said, yeah, the FBI came in and talked to that guy. So apparently this is a hot, active, ongoing investigation. And if we're talking like timeline of something perhaps happening, you know, the Murdaugh case, we had to wait until for SLED to even get involved. Initially it was just sort of like local, but you know, Alec killed Paul and Maggie in June of 2021. He was indicted about 13 months later, and then he was convicted about a year and 8 months from the crime. So that was having to wait for the separate SLED investigation and everything else. Here, the feds are already in. I mean, they showed up 2 weeks after it happened. So I would say you could probably shave a couple months off of that. And if you found out, for instance, that somebody used the means of interstate commerce, the internet, a phone, to hire somebody to kill somebody else, that's a federal crime. I mean, you go to federal jail for that. You know, if you kidnapped somebody against their will, you forced them across state lines and then killed them, that's federal. That's a federal crime. So because we have this interstate element to it, I think that it's appropriate for the FBI to be investigating not just the IRS perspective of perhaps there was some financial improprieties at the church, but then also if a person is killed across state lines, that affects the means of interstate commerce. And that's when the feds can get involved, and they're already involved here.
So what do you think happened when she left that pawn shop?
That's the question everybody has. I need to see her cell phone data. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. There's too many possibilities of, you know, some people have said, oh, was there somebody waiting in her back seat? Like, did she get forced to go to the pawn shop? You know, she looked really different when she left her house than when she was entering the pawn shop. She looked a lot more weary and swollen in her face and everything, and tired looking than when she left the house earlier. And that was only, you know, she left 20, 30 minutes before that, not even. So did she, like Peggy Clinky, set off to go to work that morning and the worst possible thing happens? The devil's literally waiting in the bushes, or somebody's waiting in the bushes, and somebody was in the back seat of her car the whole time. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure why she ended up at that gas station. What do you think?
The gas station, and then also the state park. I don't know. That's the biggest question. And I think if this goes to trial, that will be one of the big sticking points too, is by all accounts, she left her apartment that day heading to work, wearing her work uniform, but she stops at a pawn shop, buys a handgun. There's no disputing that. And from there, instead of continuing on to her job, she goes the complete opposite direction and winds up at a state park. And I don't know what happened to cause that.
The couple of comments that stuck out to me are JP saying in that video, himself saying, I told the private eye to tell me if she ever went to go get a gun. And I think her going to a pawn shop would warrant a phone call, especially if you walked in behind her and were eavesdropping and saw that it was a 6 Sauer on the counter. And him saying to Charlotte, oh, I thought she was going up to visit you. Like, where did she head after that? So that's going to be the question, is what digital evidence is going to show what incoming calls or outgoing calls she had or whatever, and what his phone was doing, or any phone he's ever controlled, or if he went to a Walmart and paid cash for a phone, or blah, blah, blah. Or maybe that doesn't exist and it's totally unrelated, and we'll find out this was all just a woman who was finally so fed up of what he did that she just chose in the middle of a day to make herself a grilled cheese sandwich and drive however long. But that also threw me off, that she's got a cooked grilled cheese sandwich in the front of the car
in the
when her car
seat.
is found. Yeah, sitting in the passenger seat. I don't know.
I've gone over it in my head a lot of, is it possible? And I mean, sure, anything's possible. Is it likely that this was of her own doing? I mean, there is a world in which, yes, you know, I mean,
It's possible.
people decide at any time, like, no matter what, maybe you've made appointments or you're on your way to somewhere, who knows what's going through somebody's mind. I will say she looks very, very weary and resigned in that pawn shop footage. I don't, and again, it's like, are you looking that way just because you know all the shit you're going through, and also like why you're having to buy that gun because you're fearing for your life? Or is it because you've made up your mind about what you're about to do? But the footage of her leaving the apartment, wearing her work uniform, listening out loud on her phone to a sermon that is about like leaving toxic relationships. And then, yeah, like having a meal in her car and stuff. I mean, like, it doesn't jive with what you would think someone that's about to go kill themselves, like the stuff that they're doing right before that. That's not saying that it can't happen, but I'm very curious how she was forced, or if she was forced, then how to get to that state park.
Yeah, or Lord, saying somebody's here with me, or I'm here, or it's, if you get a text message from you think it's somebody else that's not that person, you get a text that you think it's from your friend.
Yeah.
But it's, I don't know.
But also
that's all just evidence we don't have.
She didn't call her work.
To call off.
So, I mean, either she made the decision like, well, I'm ending things, so there's no need to call them. Or she wasn't able to call them. She was already late for work, being at the pawn. I think her shift was scheduled for like noon. So maybe it took longer than she thought it would at the pawn shop, and she thought she would get there on time. But it is strange that a call was not made saying like, I'm on my way, because she seems by all accounts to be a very like punctual and
conscientious.
And like just a trustworthy employee. So I feel like something had to have happened. But also there is the footage of her stopping at that gas station. It seems as if she's alone. She goes in. So I would argue if somebody was in the car with her, that would not be allowed.
Yeah, right. Or if it happens, go, I'm going to take my phone with me, and then in the bathroom, call 911.
Or tell the cashier or something, like, hey, I'm being held up in my car. So I don't know.
Yeah. And that's what I think the issue is right now. And I'm not, if someone said, well, there's no evidence right now that says that JP killed her, I would agree with that. We don't have physical direct evidence that shows he was at the scene, he was at the state park, he was at this. There is no direct evidence of that at this time, but the investigation is ongoing. So much like the Alec Murdaugh case, at the time we did the episode, it was like September, a couple months after it even happened, but more like absent some like really damning forensic digital evidence. And that's exactly what they had. So it's like one wonders, a woman who was as stalked as she was and kept as meticulous records as she did, I would be flabbergasted to find out that in her final days, there was not a note in her phone, a video of herself that she recorded in her phone, text messages she sent to people we just haven't heard about yet, or an email she sent that we haven't heard about yet. Something that, if she was being stalked that day and is like, oh my gosh, she's after me again. She seemed like she had been in the mode of, especially after hiring Regina Ward, she was in this mode of like, okay, we're record keeping now. We got to keep, and then we're going to bust him, and then I'm going to be out of here. So alternatively, I would assume if it was, like you said, she was like resigned and was done and was going to end things, there would be some sort of message to her family. But the very last message, one of the last messages to Sierra was, I'm really worried he's not going to let me live to see the divorce. Like, so she wasn't, man, I'm so down and I just like to die. It's like, man, I hope I can get a divorce without getting a bullet put in my head. That's going to be him doing it. So that's where I think there needs to be more investigation. And I'm glad the FBI is investigating. I think it's disgusting that the Robeson County Sheriff's Department was so vehement, like, what was a suicide? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And if they did that because they're negligent, then they're all idiots and most of them should be fired. And I'll go on record and saying, you did a bad job at your investigation. You're stupid and you did bad. However, if we find out that one of them goes to church with JP or got money from him or whatever, I think they should go to jail for that. So it's like you have negligence, but I think if you are on the take or you're being blackmailed or something like that, that's something that the FBI would find out. All we have now is that the initial investigation was negligent and was pushing this narrative, trying to push this family through, going, shut up, shut up, shut up, instead of going, we're going to just show up and look around. I think a bunch of men heard that a crazy woman was on the loose with a gun in the forest. And then suddenly we're like, well, that's obviously what happened. Because Michael Francis told Rich McHugh on News Nation, Micah's dad said, I believe it was staged. I believe the whole thing was premeditated. I believe the narrative was established by Junior, which is what he calls JP. All the way through before there was even a release. He said the day that we were notified, he was already saying, she did it, she did it, she did it. And he said, why would you do that if you don't have all the information? Why would you not be grieving? He's not shown any remorse, no grief. He shows nervousness. He shows guilt. He shows he's hiding something. And I think her dad is a lot closer and knows a lot more than we do, has seen the journals, has seen whatever it is.
He's seen their relationship for
up close.
Over a decade.
And Anna said in the weeks leading up to her death, she was getting all the paperwork together to expose him. And so when you have something that is, as I told a friend of mine about this case, and he said, why would this guy just go kill his wife? I said, I'm so sorry. I left out the part where she reported him to the IRS and he's this pastor of this rich church. And my friend went, well, there's your motive, which I think is going to come in if he is, for instance, if evidence supports an indictment of him for either murder for hire, he hired someone else to do it, or for murder himself. South Carolina does have these aggravating factors, and an aggravating factor can be if there is the person was going to be a witness against you for purpose of, you kill them to impede the investigation or prosecution of any crime. Yeah, you essentially are silencing a witness. And it's like, well, did you do that because you knew that the IRS is going to come in and go, I'm sorry, you've been using the church as your piggy bank. And we saw with the Synanon case, when the IRS decides to revoke your tax exempt status, they can revoke it back to the earliest incident of you disrespecting the nonprofit entity. And Synanon, they got busted in 84. They took back their status all the way back to 77. And so they owed $17 million. So if you're 2024 and you lose your exempt status back to 2005, when the church first started, that is a huge motive to silence someone but it's like the report was already made, buddy, and the feds are on their way. So
I think a huge motive too is just the decades of abuse and the fact that she filed for divorce from him. I mean, I think there's a litany of reasons why he would have done it. I think what will have to be figured out is exactly how it all unfolded.
No, I agree. And I think that's what the FBI will find out through digital forensics. As of now, I would say, well, as we'll reiterate, we said it, he hasn't been charged with anything. I do think he should be charged with all of this incidents of stalking. He more than fits the definition of South Carolina for stalking. And like today, they could go charge him for it. And the same with sexual abuse. If you're a minor or you know somebody that's a minor who was sexually abused by John Paul Miller, there does not appear to be a statute of limitations in South Carolina. You could report that. So I think there's a litany of these other things he's done, of obtaining a weapon through fraud, all that stuff, that hopefully anybody that's been harmed is coming forward. And in addition to reporting it to local law enforcement, you should report it to the FBI as well. If it has to do with him, because you don't know, you could be a witness that could help crack this case open. So a church of 700 people just at the time of her death, not to mention all the other parishioners back to 2005. I think it's time for the Solid Rock people to, it's like step up and do the right thing and, go call the FBI and tell them what you know.
Yeah. And the FBI, Regina Ward's office, Justice for Mica, there can be information on, if you have information on how to get to the right person on that website. But we will keep our eye on this. And, if there's any movement or any charges filed, we'll be sure to update everyone with that. And in the meantime, there's various ways to support her family on justiceformica.com. So you can head over there to see what you can do, and also find out who your state senator is and hit him up and let him know we need stricter bills to prevent stuff like this happening.
And training for law enforcement as well. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Yeah, justiceformica.com. They seem like they are really trying to become kind of what Debbie Riddle became for her sister, Peggy
Mhm.
Clinky. They want to say like coercive control is not okay. Domestic violence is not okay. And like here, we as a family want to help and help other people get free from that. And so I think that's a beautiful thing. And yeah, Mica's voice will be heard. You know, she may be silenced now, but her journals are going to go on to help a ton of people with these
Mhm.
laws.
Yes. And we will keep fighting for justice for Mica, and hopefully it will be seen sooner rather than later.
Absolutely.
This episode of Sinisterhood is made possible with the help of our amazing patrons.
If you're interested in supporting the show, consider joining our Patreon. You'll get access to ad-free regular episodes, weekly bonus content, you're able to vote on episode topics, join our monthly live streams, and more.
Keep it creepy.
Mwahaha.